Hello everybody, I'm John, this is Strategic Investing, and today I just kind of want to do a quick update video on Xtract One, as well as specifically talk about here cost of revenue and how it relates to margin, and specifically margin moving forward, how we're kind of going to look at that, how I'm thinking margin might actually grow or rise moving forward, and why it might do that. So first of all, just some quick updates here. One, we did get a couple of days ago the announcement of the Baird Center in Wisconsin. That is obviously good news. We also had an interesting webinar yesterday, and some even more interesting people in attendance. The Denver Broncos, I think, were one of the names on there. There's a list of the attendees. One of the members of my Discord server posted kind of a compilation of all of those people that were in attendance on that webinar. So that was pretty interesting as well. Got some good information on that. But let's kind of just jump into here. This is the main thing that I want to talk about on their financials. What I'm looking at is the most recent financial statement, the one from Q1 2024. This is page 15, note 10 of the financials. On a quick one last side note before we really jump into this, I'm sure all of you guys are aware by now the new CDAR, however that is pronounced. It's just terrible. It's so much of a process now to actually go in, find the documents that you're looking for. You have to type in document types, date ranges, things like that. It's just a mess. So what I've done all of the tedious, busy work for you guys, and on my Discord server, I have actually compiled, I'll show it to you guys here, another channel that is specifically the documents from the fiscal year 2020 all the way to the most recent financial documents here. So if you guys are already on my Discord server, or if you're not, you can join. The link is in the description to all of my videos. But that is just, to help you guys out in case you're like me and you like to go look at the financials, read through those, see what you can find out. That is where you can find them, the easiest way to access them. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into this here. So what I want to talk about, one is the difference here between what are some of the one-time costs here versus recurring fees, and also how that can affect and how this breakdown can affect the difference between subscription contracts, upfront contracts, and the profitability within those. So what I want to do, I went in and I made this little spreadsheet here to kind of help us analyze this. So what we're looking at here, just going to kind of go through these. Product, from what I can tell, the product cost of revenue is mainly related to the hardware costs of the upfront contracts. And I'll tell you why when we get to depreciation. But that is mainly related, it seems like, to the hardware costs, again, of the upfront contract. So that would be technically a one-time expense for the revenue, because that cost is recognized initially when they get that revenue from the upfront contract. Installation and shipping, those are self-explanatory. Those are obviously one-time expenses. Depreciation we'll skip over for just a second. Salaries and commissions, we don't know how they structure their commissions, whether they're over the life of the contract, whether they're a one-time thing at the beginning. And salaries, from what I can tell, the salaries on this are most likely related, because we have, installation and shipping as a separate broken out cost. The only people that I can think of that these salaries would be associated with are, maybe some of the salespeople, although that's probably mainly the commissions. But most likely, most of that is the people in charge of support and maintenance and things like that. That would be a recurring fee for both the upfront and the subscription contracts. So, and then jumping back to depreciation, for any of you guys that don't know, depreciation is basically an accounting method for showing the diminishing value of an asset over time. So, right, you buy a new car, you buy it for $45,000. 5 years later, that car is not obviously still worth $45,000. It has depreciated in value, right? So what we're looking at here in the depreciation is basically the way that they're accounting for the cost on the hardware of the subscription contract. So how they're doing this is, when the subscription contract, when there is a subscription contract, the customer doesn't actually own the hardware. They don't own the smart gateways. Xtract One retains ownership of them, and they lease them through the subscription, along with the support, software, all of that, to the customer. This means that because Xtract One retains them as an asset on their balance sheet, they have to account for the diminishing value. And it seems like what they're doing is actually depreciating most, if not all, of the value of those smart gateways over the initial life of most of the contracts, which seems to be generally about 3 years. So this is a recurring cost, but it seems like maybe it's actually a recurring cost to a point until it falls off, because theoretically you could get a customer, that after the 3 years renews the contract, continues to use those smart gateways, and now that depreciation cost is already, mostly fallen off. Maybe they have a changing, smaller depreciation schedule moving forward. But most of those costs, it seems like, will be, off. And really all they're paying for at that point is the salary and, maybe the commissions aspect of this cost of revenue. So the main thing that I want to touch on here is, one, it seems as if the subscription contracts will be much, much more profitable in the long term than the upfront contracts for Xtract One. And so, obviously they'd like to probably get more of those in the short term. It is nice, especially with their cash position, the way it is, to get that influx of cash from these upfront contracts, because you get access to that capital immediately. You can use it to help the company grow, which they need to do right now. But long term, 3, 5, especially, 8 to 10 years out, I would imagine Xtract One is going to be mainly focusing on the subscription contracts, because they're going to be a much higher margin and much more profitable for them moving forward. The other thing that I want to talk about is the reason that I think that margin will increase modestly as we move forward is the fact that with these contracts, if you look at the upfront contract, right, you have that initial, product cost, installation, shipping, etc. But then after that, you're paying for the recurring support and maintenance. Those salaries and commissions seem like a very, very small cost. And so very likely, we don't know exactly how much Xtract charges for the support and maintenance and things like that in relation to the overall value of the contract or how many gateways there are. But it seems like that revenue would be very high margin revenue. So moving, forward past that initial cost of the upfront contract, a lot of that recurring revenue seems like it's going to be very high margin. And as that builds further, and especially as we build on more subscription contracts, because those will have a higher margin as well, again, especially as you get past the initial 3-year life of that contract, and you even get those depreciation costs start to fall off of that, you're looking at an even higher margin on those. As we, right now we're in a period where Xtract One is growing very quickly. They're going to have a high mix of new contracts, and so you're going to have higher costs associated with that. Probably we'll still see that margin around the 67%, somewhere around there. But as we move 2, 3, 5 years into the future and we start to build up a very nice backlog of those, now older, quote unquote, contracts, those contracts are going to start to bring in very, very high margin revenue. And that mix is going to very likely push that, gross margin potentially to 70, 75% maybe. And, that may not seem like a lot, but when you're talking, 3, 5 years down the road, potentially, $10, $20 million in, revenue per quarter, maybe even more, that 5%, even like 3% in margin means a whole lot as far as profitability, as far as free cash flow. And that's what investors really care about, especially those institutional investors. So this, I think, is a really important point that people should be aware of if they're investing in Xtract One. My personal opinion is that, we're very likely not, in the next quarter, not maybe in the next, year, but over the next 2, 3 years or so, we'll very likely see this margin start to creep up, towards that 70% and maybe 70 to 75% range. And that's going to make a big difference for them as far as profitability and cash flow goes. So that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to talk about here. As always, leave your questions in the comments below. Anything I missed, anything you'd like me to cover. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys found it helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.